So before we start our session, let me highlight a brief details of our resource person. Dr. Moses Satralkar is Associate Professor in Education in Christ University, Bangalore, India. He is also Executive Director, Global Resilience Consortium. And he is also Associate Director, Global Challenges Forum Foundation, Switzerland. Dr. Moses is a professional in the field of international education for almost 15 years, managing international baccalaureate schools as well as orchestrating teaching and interdisciplinary research in education. He has established a private teaching training institute, also organized business development and collaborations between universities across the world and international schools in India. He is qualified with PhD Zoology from Ahmednagar College, which is accredited to University of Pune. He has authored 13 research papers in biological rhythms. He is on the editorial board of the International Journal of Psychology and Neuroscience. He has worked with 5 British and 1 American university, and his areas of interest are philosophy, theology, chronobiology, international education, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So that is a brief introduction of our resource person. And while he's presenting his paper, if you have any questions, you may type itself in the chat box, and after that, after the session is over, our resource person may bring up those questions after his session. Okay, so sir, can we start?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Warm greeting.
Time is yours. Please carry on.
Christ University, Bangalore. Sincerely appreciate having given me this opportunity to be a resource person to present this webinar at your very esteemed institution in the northeast of India. So if you look at the concept of what teacher disposition is all about, I mean, I'm looking at the concept first in terms of how we discuss teacher disposition, and how it applies and entails to our day-to-day lives as faculty members in colleges, in universities, in international schools, in schools as well. And basically, I want to outline what are the various areas in which we can look at what is quantifiable and what is unquantifiable. And let's look at how we can improve as faculty members in order to make education a very meaningful experience for faculty and students. So when you look at the concept of the X factor, and teachers need to have the X factor, all faculty members, you must have probably seen and viewed these very interesting soaps and commercials and some of these very happening shows on television, prime time, the X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent. And you have a panel of very erudite judges who basically give you a view and a feedback and almost a selection as to whether you're in or out into the second level. And we have a critical friend there, Simon Cowell. He was one of the panelists in some of those very great talent shows, and his word really did matter. So basically, I'm going to be your critical friend today, and I'm going to give you some overview and insight as to how we can develop the X factor when we talk about teacher disposition. So what is the concept of teacher disposition? This topic intrigued me because I have been in the field of international education, research, training, and teacher education, managing international baccalaureate schools, organizing and orchestrating collaboration with several British and American universities. And I've also been looking into collaborations with the United Nations Sustainable Developmental Goals at the university level, SDG Accord, higher education sustainability initiatives, and the UN academic impact. And when we look at all this, they do address a factor known as quality education. And quality education is not just curriculum. It is not just curriculum accreditation. It has a lot to do with the quality of the faculty, the intellectual development of the faculty, and the disposition of the faculty, a lesser known area, but very important. So when we look at the whole person, teachers teach children. Teachers even teach adult students. And some of them say, hey, I taught my dog to whistle. And then the friend said, I don't hear him whistling. And this boy says, I said, I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. Teaching and learning are two different things. You can teach something, but has the person learned it? That's what we need to see. And teaching and learning are facets of pedagogy that go hand in hand. Now, when you look at the whole person and whole person development, the entire dimensions of a human being or a child or an adult, when he or she goes into schools, they have a physical dimension, an intellectual dimension, a very creative dimension, emotional, social, and a spiritual dimension. Now, different kinds of people and different sort of socioeconomic milieus have different expectations from educational institutions. So you can take a look at that, and parents are very expectant, and they have reasonable, sometimes unreasonable expectations of faculty members and their interaction with their child, because basically the purpose of education is preparation for life, and the role of the teacher is to unlock the full potential of the child, all these creative facets. But what bridges this is disposition, the values, attitudes, mannerisms, and behavior, and the personality of the teacher. And so parents also, from a different strata, expect this kind of a training and teaching where the child is developed fully and not just academically. And with today's challenging world, we have to look at the concept of disposition. I will reiterate, disposition means attitude, values, mannerisms, behavior, and personality. And all of us have a disposition. And what I'm trying to advocate is we need to have a positive disposition. We need to have a personality. And what is pedagogy? Pedagogy is how to teach. Everybody is a master or a PhD at a particular subject whenever they're in government universities or colleges, and they are already experts in a particular subject. So they may be a master's or a PhD holder and a subject expert at, say, science or technology or mathematics or linguistics, but they should also be aware of what is pedagogy. And pedagogy is different teaching styles, different teaching methodologies, mannerisms in which you teach, how you can role model better. And that needs to be fine-tuned, and that needs to work hand in hand with the curriculum and the curriculum accreditations in order to bring out a lot of meaningful learning with the students. Otherwise, you'll just be teaching, but the child may not learn because you may not be a model or a role model good enough for the child to learn from. So what are these dispositions? Again, these are the values, commitments, professional ethics that influence behaviors towards students, families, colleagues, and communities. And we have to provide a safe and secure learning environment. What about pedagogy? Pedagogy is narrowly defined as what teachers do in the classroom, but you know what? A majority of learning also happens in the ecosystem, outside the classrooms. In fact, a relationship with a student or a child on a personal level can also be a little more settling. There's a feeling of warmth, appreciation, and it's not just getting full marks in examinations and the whole stress of competitions and development of the child for cognitive abilities and IQ only. we need to look at the intellectual development beyond just exam preparation. So teaching, learning, disposition, pedagogy go hand in hand. We are all experts in professional knowledge, yes. But it's not about individual teachers, but it's all about a team, a group of learners, various domains of curriculum and assessment that go together with social, cultural, and political and policy contexts of young people's learning. So some of these definitions have not been understood because we have kept curriculum to one side and we have kept disposition to one side and we have looked at academic achievements only, not keeping in mind that academic achievements can actually improve if the teacher has the right kind of a positive mindset, positive personality, good vibes, then academic achievement can be enhanced. That is why the concept of teacher disposition, exploring the unquantifiable. Now, when you look at some of the conditions for effective teaching, and I will present a few case studies which I am familiar with. I'll give you some food for thought, allow you to reflect on some of these areas. I'm quite certain all of you are faculty members in the college, in the university, and you're teaching adult students, bachelor's level, and possibly masters also. And in the years ahead, we need to look at research. We need to look at systems, of course, the ethos of the college and the principles and the fundamental mission statement, and are they aligned to our personality, our personal aspiration, our goals? What about the teaching environment? Do you know that the teaching environment is the third teacher? Less has been spoken of about a good, positive, enriched environment that could be a third teacher. What about leadership? The domain of leadership is critical in education administration because leadership and management may be the same, but may not also be the same. So leadership is to inspire. It is to lead yourself well. It is to live for a higher purpose and a higher calling, and thereby. What about time and space? What about the time that is provided? Or what about the teaching environment? The ecosystem has to be very well balanced in order to nurture all the various facets of that particular student. So there are intrinsic variables and intrinsic variables. The learner also has to be mature and ready. They need to have a good grasp about their ecosystem, the environment. They need to be situationally aware. They need to have good vocabulary. And if you look at certain organizational principles, when it comes to teacher education, one organization that I'd really like to highlight is the International Baccalaureate Organization. So when you look at the IB and the kind of work they're doing in the continuum of international education, very excellent teacher education programs that are afforded for the faculty members are in the three curriculum areas, primary and middle and the high school. And you need to understand one of the curriculum which I found. Now, Dr. Google is a platform that we are all using on a day-to-day basis. Dr. Google works with us, has been working with us since childhood. Dr. Google is available on the fingertips of a child or of a faculty member. Does Dr. Google really charge? Not really. And you have these very creative and brilliant workspaces that are available where a very creative mindset is put to work basically, and they have an excellent R&D, and Google is headquartered in San Francisco, and I had the privilege of visiting their office in Hyderabad. And, it was exciting for some of their programs, and I was amazed to see some of the very formal and informal workspaces and creativity that they have created for, the educational programs that Google promotes, and the kind of knowledge networking and the kind of easy access to information which they are providing online, even the AdWords program, the AdSense, and Google Earth, and they have so many very encouraging platforms that they are promoting now, which are here to stay. Very creative ways to doing that. And how are the employees being a part of the educational fraternity? By developing, designing, and putting online content or making online content easily accessible, because knowledge obsolescence is there and we have knowledge being obsolete every 24 hours. That is why we need to keep in touch with information that is processed rapidly on the Internet of Things. And we can choose to, select certain information that you think is correct, and some information may not be correct. And you have research information that Google provides. Fortunately, it is free of cost. So we need to understand the disposition of Google is to make knowledge accessible. And it's a very creative sort of a journey. And some of the founders did a very great job in back Sergey Page and Larry Brin. And now we have Sundar Pichai, who is an Indian, who's a CEO. So you need to understand, prior to that, there was Eric Schmidt. So you need to understand how the leadership dynamics, the creativity, the various areas and attributes in which the disposition of some of the Google scientists, some of the very erudite personalities that they have brought into the R&D and C&D teams have sort of made knowledge mapping and knowledge accessing so easy. Organization is the International Baccalaureate Organization. 8 in Switzerland, in the Geneva program of study. Initially, it was at high school level. They wanted a curriculum board across the world that was very interesting, and they wanted a uniformity of ideas and education system across the world. And this was also to promote peace through education. After the world wars, they felt that there were a lot of cultural dissimilarities and people were not able to understand one another from one country to another country. They had this crosstalk, but people teachings and traditions, they were not able to understand one another. So this organization was brought on board and created and co-created with a group of very stalwart academicians who decided to have a uniform curriculum which was international in nature, which would cross-cut the boundaries of traditional boundaries of religion or race or country or your upbringing. And they established it in a very unique manner, first with a high school provision of study programs. Then they have brought it to PYP, then MYP was established. PYP is primary years, and diploma program is the high school component, and of course MYP is the middle years framework. So currently we have approximately 5,537 schools and 1 million students and 65,000 educators. These are the faculty members, 65,000 of them across the world. So they needed to come up with a unique vision and mission statement. They also had to have teacher training programs. And this is one program of study, and I'll show you evidence as to how your personality directly affects curriculum delivery in order to produce the results you want to unlock all the dimensions of that student. And they are making this a global trend. So what is the mission? The International Baccalaureate aims to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who help to create a better and a more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. So now, when you look at certain perspectives, academics, educators, teaching qualifications have, academic programs which have or develop or nurture or build perspectives in students. So when you look at the concept of perspectives, somebody will say 6, somebody will say 9. Why? You're seeing things differently. So my perspective may not be your perspective, and your perspective may not really be my perspective. So it's all about how you relate and how you develop your own worldview and how you develop a teachable point of view because you have that understanding. And social awareness, evolutionary perspective, your social, cultural, organizational, behavioral trends affect your learning patterns. And if you look at the trait perspective, this talks about how emotions can affect your learning. So there are different kinds of students, different kind of learners, different kind of teachers, different kind of teaching strategies, but you need to, and that is a perspective. And when we look at psychology and positive psychology, and we look at IQ and EQ. So let's look at Daniel Goleman as an excellent theorist and educator who postulated the concept of emotional intelligence. So he says IQ and EQ go hand in hand. You cannot just work with IQ and just the brain. You need the heart as well. So you need to have very positive thoughts. You need to have positive emotions, because emotions do make a lot of impact on the learners. Everybody wants to have a happy childhood. Childhood is geared around schooling. It's geared around the home. It's geared around, different friendships. And children love to be happy. They like to be happy. They can get cranky as well. But if there is a positive ecosystem, a positive mentor or a nurturing environment in the school where the teacher is aware that EQ is important, emotional intelligence is equally important as intelligence quotient, then that child will be inspired and motivated to becoming a positive person. And there are various ways to foster positive thinking. You can have a recall of life's positive moments, talk to somebody about it, read a book, watch a movie, perform acts of kindness. It's good to be nice. Say the right words. Have the right kind of thinking. Have the right kind of friendships. Express gratitude. It's always good to express gratitude. And practice mindfulness. Spend time with yourself. Solitude, reflections, exercise, listening to music, reading. Reading is a very good habit. It promotes deep thinking, almost a meditative phase. What about positive psychology? And Martin Seligman introduced the PERMA theory, and he spoke about positive emotions and, engagement, positive relationships, and the meaning to life and accomplishments that can be celebrated in unison when people are positive. So if you have a group of positive people, the environment brightens up. If few people are moody and negative or bickering, then you could have an environment which perhaps may not be as conducive to produce overall development of an ecosystem or a school or a college or an environment. That's why it's important to have positive people at the workplace. Unfortunately, that is not being gauged. Teacher appraisals and teacher education programs do not measure emotional intelligence. It's time to now even look at how we can make this paradigm shift where we are looking at positivity being appraised. I mean, there's an appraisal system for students, appraised in students and faculty members. Now, if you look at theory of the imagination and creativity, and we have a theory of knowledge, of course, and when we look at creative classrooms or imaginative workspaces, Renaissance and the art movement, and even the innovations in laboratories, technology, gadgets, and how gadgets shift the focus quickly, and how you can bring in digital art forms from virtual, platforms, augmented reality, and how books can also be digital learning sources, digital libraries. And we have laboratories where you have all kinds of experimentation conducted, students and adults. Imagine, postulate, hypothesize, innovate, and create new ideas. Tangible patents. Sometimes the students comes up with a research paper, a new experiment, a novel finding, and presents it. And all this is very exciting, provided you have a mentor or a guide who is not only knowledgeable, who is not only expert with the research and intellectual acumen, but who's also positive. Because a lot of imagination and creativity requires positivity. It requires a resilience that is tangible. And we've got to keep going and promoting creativity in our classrooms. What about the theory of knowledge? The theory of knowledge and how knowledge is the epistemology and the creation, co-creation of knowledge, and the unique linking and application of knowledge sets and certain contentious areas into real life society. And if you look at the concept of, say, something as obscure and less known and less understood as evolution of the human race, where have we come from? Thousands of years ago, where did we migrate from? Who are we? Who are our ancestors? Over time and through space, what about infinity? What about God? Is there a life in space? What about extraterrestrials? What about evolution, anthropology? Is there future civilization? Is there a future civilization? These are questions that people ask. And is there an entity who monitors us? Are there avenues to get in touch with spiritual realms? What is the difference between religion and spirituality? All this requires a lot of thought and planning and mulling and research and individual capacity to understand where we were, where we are, and where we are going. Sometimes there are consequences to lack of knowledge. But let's be hopeful and let's be positive that yes, we can now develop some knowledge questions of the unknown, the surreal, the bizarre, and even the paranormal, and even the spiritual. And these are realms that we can tap into. We only need to have a good reference source, and we need to know the truth, because sometimes facts and truth may not be the same. Now, when you look at some of the negative effects of moods, and we study the trait perspective, if a person is perpetually moody and restless and depressed as a faculty member or as a child, then there are implications on the body. Brain, mouth, reproductive organs, muscles, positive emotions, and negative emotions are actually impacting the human body. Digestive tract, hearts, lungs, skin, and hair. And if you look carefully, positive emotions actually heal the body. A positive mind and a body interaction is well, I would say, placed to ensure and assure something known as wellness, overall wellness. And there are negative issues and there are negative situations, and we have got to make sure that all these things go hand in hand, keeping in mind with what is being taught. So students need to understand whatever they're speaking, if it's negative, those negative words will affect in the future. Negative emotions, they'll affect in the future. How is it possible to be positive all the time? Is it possible? Creative people are sometimes very moody, very restless. Some of them are very, I'd say, temperamental. Faculty members also could be very, sometimes absent-minded or sometimes very cynical. However, that being said, we've got to be brilliant and we've got to have a stable emotion whereby as faculty members, we are always positive. Is it possible? Yes, it's always possible. That's the whole high ground of this talk. How can we really promote positive dispositions in faculty members? Now let's look at some of the mindsets of creative teachers. Before that, let's look at some of the IB learner dispositions. The IB is the International Baccalaureate Organization. I talked to you about IB and Google. Google is a case study of a very, I would say, companies to work for and one of the best employers. And the IB is another organization that promotes positivity and creative thinking and learning, and where dispositions and emotions and learning, that is IQ and EQ, go hand in hand. They have something known as the IB learner profile. The IB learner profile is critical. Right from primary school to middle and through high school, you have something known as the IB learner profile, where the students are actually assessed based on these yardsticks, which are rather qualitative. So students are taught to be inquirers, thinkers, communicators, risk takers, knowledgeable, principled, caring, open-minded, balanced, and reflective. The details of these very astute virtues are mentioned, and this is how they're actually measuring the unquantifiable. This may not be very quantifiable, but when you make it quantifiable, when you understand that words have meaning and words have emotions, and positive thinking and positive lifestyle and positive vocabulary and positive friendships and nurturing faculty actually develop very happy children. And if you have not very happy faculty members or negative faculty members or a negative management, then I don't think you're really developing a positive learning profile of a student. You're developing students who have qualifications. They have the qualification. They have a piece of paper. Yes, they have all passed. They may have gotten 100 out of 100. But are they positive people? Are they balanced people? Are they caring about the environment? Are they nurturing? Are they reflective? Are they conscientious global citizens? So this is very critical. That is why qualifications is IQ and the measurement of IQ over a period of time. But the emotional intelligence and the dispositions, we need to measure the unquantifiable. Now, when you look at ecosystem of educators, IB teachers, and you look at children, teachers were children once upon a time. We all were children. And then we are now adults, but we go through the phases and stages of life. Don't we all remember and mull on the nostalgia of the great times we've had during childhood? So teachers should be positive now, because children are looking at teachers as their parents, almost like guardians. And a teacher has profound effect and influence on the life of a student. Whether it's in the classroom or whether it's during graduation or whether it's during childhood or adolescence, teachers actually are the ones who really make an important sort of a decision for students whether to make or break that person as a personality. So we have to build up students, and we cannot build people up if we are negative. We have to be positive. Now, when you look at the learners, and some of the critical learning elements, apart from the IB learner profile, is the creativity, activity, and service component of the IB program. And the creativity, activity, service actually entails students to be creative, do some very creative projects, and look at some sporting, physical activities and engagement in the community. And the service component, looking at cleaning up lakes, or whether it's going out on an excursion, and in the meantime, planting trees whilst there, or the Model United Nations, and talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, doing small projects in that area. This sort of brings out a lot of intercultural diversity, it brings about a positivity, it brings about situational awareness, it brings about a sense of responsibility and belonging. So they are actually excited to be a part of their environment and their ecosystem. And this could be learners from all over the world. And most IB schools have a cross spectrum of faculty and students from across the world, some of the more evolved schools. So we need to look at how creativity, activity, and service, again, unquantifiable. Curriculum program, then you can measure it. That is why it's not computer science. We need to look at the unquantifiable. We need to bring in a co-curriculum program, which is not being quantified as a quantifiable component as part of the learning journey and learning qualification, learning experience. And we have to ensure that this unquantifiable now becomes quantifiable. And they're actually assessed on this. They get their qualification based on the completion of the theory of knowledge, the extended essay, and the creativity, activity, service, or the CAS program. Now, when you look at the mindsets of creative teachers, look at fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. A fixed mindset is traditional. It is limiting. It is threatened by someone else's success. There is a desire of enmity and jealousy, and that is not okay. Too much unhealthy competition in the workplace, whether it is college or schools or company or anything, even a governmental organization. We cannot limit ourselves by, being insecure. We shouldn't belittle, but at the same time, we've got to be open-minded. What is open-minded? Emancipation, freedom in expression, ideation, conversations, being nurturing, and also the ability to accept cultural diversity. And India is a very diverse country. Many parts of the world are very diverse in their culture and their upbringing and their faiths and the ideation, the way they do things, the way they communicate, the way they run the country, the way they run the schools or colleges. You have to be understanding and mature enough to use a common language, a common thread of emotions, and a common quantifiable mechanism by which we can foster a positive ecosystem. Otherwise, then you have strife. You may have wars. You have disagreements and differences. And if children and faculty members and teachers teach children. Children become adults. Adults are the ones who are getting into the workplaces, some in very responsible workplaces, making all the decisions. Now, if you have a lot of negative people going out into the workforce, you'll have a negative environment. The world could be full riddled with problems and strife if negative people with great qualifications are going out, but they're just negative people. They have a fixed mindset. They have a closed, limited view and narrow viewpoint about life. They're not able to see the gray areas. They can't talk about the gray areas. They're not intellectual enough. So it's a very spiritual sort of a journey whereby we enhance our mindsets and our capacities as thinkers and speakers. We've got to be resilient. We've got to accept failure. We've got to bounce back, and we have got to have a growth mindset which finds inspiration in someone else's success. We've got to build up. We've got to nurture. That's what responsible teachers and faculty members do. We allow students and ourselves to embrace challenges and also accept some critical comments. I'm giving you a critique. Our desire, our thirst for knowledge, search for wisdom. And we have to build these abilities. We've got to allow these to build up in our youngsters and in the adults also. So this is what it's all about. So when you look at the whole child or the whole person, and that is what we are supposed to nurture and nourish and bring about, at the end of the day, you need to have a so whether it is from a socioeconomic community, children, we are human beings, irrespective of where we are. We may be stationed in a very cozy cocoon classroom, or we may be playing out there in the outdoors in a sort of a so-called dilapidated environment. But at the end of the day, the human spirit is strong, and it has nurtured us over generations, wherever we are. We need to allow people to be happy. We need to promote positivity in our workplaces, in our schools, in our colleges, and we need these happy people in the leadership roles. Otherwise, when we have very grim and very serious people ruling the roost, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. They may produce people with qualifications, but they may not be positive people. They may not understand different opinions or worldviews. They may not be able to reconcile differences. And they're always looking to fight for resources, and they're looking to belittle somebody else or try to be, okay, I'm smarter than you, higher than thou, and holier than thou. So we've got to be a little cautious when we're doing these things. Wherever we are, and when you look at smart creative teachers, who are these smart creative teachers? Who are these smart creative teachers? You have people with skills, talents, and potentials, and you put a great team together, and they use their talents not just to teach the subject, but also the child. Now we have hired and attracted a lot of smart creative people. Now you cannot put them in a drab space. You cannot hire a very smart person and tell him exactly what to do, or what. It could be a her also. So it's very essential for us to look at freedom, creativity, and getting rid of too much of policy and documentation and the stress factor that faculty have to go home with, laborious hours of work. It doesn't work. You've got to keep it simple. And at the same time, yes, academics is rigorous. Yes, academics is challenging. Yes, education is a workspace and workforce environment where people can sometimes not be appreciated, and they may not be getting enough remuneration as much as they need to. They are measured and evaluated based on, a pay scale which may not be very inspiring for them to do work beyond, office hours. But there are folks who go beyond the charter of duty to do innovative work, creative work, and build up these children and adults in the colleges and the schools together. So when we look at these smart creatives, remember the smart creatives, whenever you look for them or whenever you hire them, are going to be innovative minds. And they require a certain kind of a workspace and freedom, and also a certain kind of a team that they are comfortable with. That's why we can look at a workspace which can thrive with these people. Yes. So this is what it's all about, smart creative teachers. And we need to promote the concept of a smart creative teacher. Use role play, play acting in your classrooms. Children love heroes. They love stories. They like movies. They like game-based learning. They like apps. They like role plays. They like music, movies, museums, expeditionary visits, exploratorium, the playground, the gardens. We are only using 4 walls, a smart board, a digital app, which is good. But the learning actually happens in the community and the ecosystem around us. So we need to look at all these dimensions as an ecosystem for teaching and learning, and not just a classroom and classroom space. Now we are doing online blended learning today. A lot of learning is virtual, it's online. Can it be creative? Yes, it can be creative. We can make things creative. We can make it more enterprising, even for students to realize that, yes, we can enjoy our lives, even if there are situational issues or if there's mitigating circumstances, we still are able to carry forward our lives and propel it in the right direction. So these are some of the mindsets of creative teachers. And when you look at teaching dispositions and the role of teachers and quality measures, then we have to be a little more virtuous in understanding the definition. What characteristics define a teacher to be a positive person? Caring, yes. Fair, not biased, good. What about respect? Mutual respect. It's not just faculty expecting respect from the children, but faculty being equally respectable of differences in the classroom, cultural diversity, and respect religions from various backgrounds, because we are now looking at reconciliation, and that is what we were called for. Enthusiasm, energy, we need to be enthusiastic, positive. Motivation, you need to inspire people, motivate them. There should be a reward system in place, definitely. Human beings like incentivization, they like rewards. Some of these are unquantifiable, but some of them are quantifiable. So we need to look at what is motivation, how can it be garnished and garnered and harnessed as well. And we need to look at reflective practices whereby teaching and learning practices are very conducive in producing these very innovative minds. What about positive attitudes toward teaching? Some people get into teaching because that's the last thing on their checklist. I couldn't become an engineer or a doctor, so now I'll become a teacher. Gone are the days when teaching was looked down upon. Today, it's a fairly respectable profession, thanks to certain schooling systems that provide you with that lifestyle, that kind of intriguing sort of quantifiable workspace, an enriched work environment, good leadership, and also, that kind of remuneration that you deserve, truly deserve. Colleges and universities also have to look at positive attitudes towards teaching and learning and management. And what about friendly and personal interactions with students? It's abysmal these days. I mean, faculty are not able to relate with their students. They're just like, we'll complete the curriculum, we'll complete the syllabus, and that's about it. Go on your way. But what about mentoring? What about nurturing? What about aspirations? We have to look at all these areas, and we have to look at positive, friendly vibes and interactions, of course, within the ethical framework, of course, within the, what the norms and policies of the institution are all about. We've got to look at all this, but definitely we have to have a mature dialogue with our students, with the, the community around us, our peers and our overseers. We've got to have collaboration, courage, grit, ownership, optimism, and creativity taught to them, actually taught to them. We need to have case studies. We need to have some outreach programs. We need to look at ways in which these are imbibed and infused in them qualitatively, although it's unquantifiable today. We have to make it quantifiable. We have to measure this, and we have to encourage this, and we have to nurture this. Programs. We need to inculcate these pedagogic programs for the capacity building of existing teachers. And if you look at key attributes of teacher disposition, of course, the teacher should be very clear of his or her role. It is not to complete the syllabus. It is not to get 100 out of 100s only. It's not just attendance and coming on time. The role of the teacher is to unlock the full potential of the student, of the child, of the adult, of the learner. And this cannot happen if he or she is not a practitioner of holistic development. That's why the faculty member has to be a practitioner of holistic development. This has to be measured. They should give meaning to work. They should find meaning in teaching as a profession or as a career. It can't be as a last on the list of so many career options that didn't, get the tick or check in the checklist. And now we are ended up stranded somewhere at the bottom and now we're just teachers. No, that kind of mindset is pathetic. It's going to be dodged for others to, pull you out of that mindset and say, no, you know what, you've got to be a little more aspiring towards, giving your life some more meaning and being happy. And work environments, you've got to pay them well. You cannot have teachers working for long hours and laborious and having no work-life balance. No, they've got to have an ecosystem where they are appreciated. Self-actualization, they need to do faculty development programs in a very serious manner. And a lot of the Northeast needs to look at this very seriously. Teacher education. Smart teachers, we need innovative minds, smart creative teachers. What about innovation? Innovation in the lab, in the school, in the community. Compassion and empathy. There are a lot of people struggling, children struggling, lack of education, poverty, alienation, isolation, religious strife. We have to develop empathy and compassion. Lack of basic needs, food, water, shelter. We have to provide that to people around us. Colleges, teachers need to nurture responsible, committed young people who can actually have these qualities of compassion, empathy, and who can go out into the workforce and actually do something else beyond just getting a paycheck. Mental robustness, we have to be resilient, we have got to be tough people. Redesigning the brain, it's about learning, unlearning, and relearning. A lot of people have to unlearn a lot of things, and then they have to relearn. So that's rewiring the brain, plasticity, neuroplasticity of the brain. Through good mentors, through good literature, through books, through movies, through crucible experiences. What about situational awareness? You've got to have this general knowledge, situational awareness. So when you look at the whole concept of competencies and teaching competencies, the adaptability, positivity, you need to be organized yourself before getting into an organization. Are you disciplined? Self-organization, being organized, then get into an organization. Organizational culture is living with cultural diversity. Emotional resilience, you've got to be strong. Leading with authority. If you have a calling, if you have a destiny, then you've got to lead. You've got to be given the opportunity. Communication and interpersonal styles, these have to be nurtured. Decision-making and autonomy. You have to be given the freedom also at certain levels to succeed. The drive to succeed. Our children, our parents, the faculty, fraternity, the leadership management, everybody wants people to succeed, yes. But there are many, very many who try to pull people down and children down by marks, stressing them out, syllabus, and being very rudimentary in their communication. But we have got to actually build up the community, build up the ecosystem. We've got to be positive. We've got to give them the impetus and the motivation and the environment to succeed. This is what our spiritual calling is, and we are educators, we are facilitators, because education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. And I really build a lot of values and meanings beyond other languages. Of course, there are very good languages and very many good languages, but English actually brings people together. It actually unites. So which of these do you need to develop as a faculty member? These are questions you ask yourself. We ask ourselves. These are some of the competencies we need to develop. And quality measures: emerging, establishing, embedding, enhancing, enlightening. There are some people who are enlightened, absolutely. Visionaries, they've had a vision and they are very profound and they are close to a realm that gives them some amount of guidance, and they have the kind of, the vibe and emotional sort of a conduit towards people and communities and advisory and innovation and innovative curriculum programs. They are able to guide others, mentor, almost like a prophetic role. We want all our faculty to members to get there. Many are just emerging educators, emerging teachers right there. They have to develop vocabulary. They have to develop their personality. They have to establish themselves as educators. They have to embed themselves with some of the know-hows, and then they have to enhance and develop their capacity as people who can make a difference in the larger, broader ecosystem than just students in a classroom. And then enlightening. Very interesting. So we need to have quality evaluation of faculty members. So that is what it is. And change, the only thing that's constant. So when you look at the learner and the various facets of learning and holistic development, and we looked at the virtuous cycle of a meaningful educator or a transformative teacher, knowledge is transactional or transformational. Now, if it has to be transformational, then the learner profile, the various dimensions of holistic development, and the extrinsic exterior sort of a conducive environment of a well-meaning teacher or an enlightened teacher. The role of the teacher and the situational awareness and the innovation and mental robustness and all these conduits and facets are going hand in hand. It's all interconnected, inextricably linked. It's almost like a wheel. And if there are certain spokes in the wheel, it's good. It connects the wheel and the wheel keeps rolling. Something else gets damaged, the whole thing falls apart. We cannot do one without the other. And I'm not saying we've got to be perfect people. Yes, people have flaws, and children have, of course, their quirks. But we can build on our strengths. That is leadership. We've got to overcome our weaknesses, and we can all work together to creating this very enriching sort of teacher education experience, learning experience for children, and celebrating the concept of education as a vocation. There's a virtuous cycle to self-review and your own self-appraisal. And you can look at where you are now and where do I want to be and how will I get there and how will I know when I get there. And you ask these questions. Okay, this is where I am. This is what I want to be. How will I get there? How will I know I'll get there? What is required? So you've got to actually enumerate and write all this down. That is why faculty development has to be a little more meaningful. It can't just be subject-specific pedagogy. Math teacher gets trained in how to teach math better, and a language teacher gets trained in how, or educated as to how to teach language better. No, it is this unquantifiable cycle of self-review and a creative, innovative, positive teacher. That is what we need to build up in today's world. Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland is one of my very sweet tales, and I kind of look at how Alice comes to this caterpillar and she asks him some questions. Then the caterpillar asks, "Who are you?" He says, "I hardly know, sir. I know who I was, but I think I've changed." She's, of course, become a tiny little tot. And the caterpillar tells her that she's actually an old gentleman, and she gets befuddled, and then she was almost going off, and then he calls her back and says, "No, you know what? There's so much more to your life." And he gives her some answers, but he gives her clues. He does not spoon feed the child. He tells her you can get back to being who you are, what you were, but you would have changed now and you could have changed later. But he gives clues. And that's how Alice in Wonderland. Very profound reflection of people and how they change because of different ecosystems. You give them a good ecosystem, they'll become good people. You put them in a bad ecosystem, they'll become bad people. That is why we have to be very careful. Another book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. You must take a look at that book and read that book and reflect on them. Very profound. So when we look at the conclusion, I would only leave you with a few thoughts, a poem, a few quotes, and then I'll be open up for questions. I'll read out this poem. It really inspired me. Aspire, perspire, inspire. Acknowledge the goals you want to achieve. Success is not an overnight phenomenon. Prepare for the future, not what is bygone. Indulge completely in making yourself believe. Remember your past and keep learning. Engage with positive thoughts. Face your fears. Prepare for a better tomorrow, my peers. Experience the falls while you are yearning. Remind yourself that you can go places. Step up, rise, and quit procrastinating. Pursue the dreams that you have been seeing. Invigorate the zeal that helps your chases. Rewind, revisit, but never resort to mistakes. Exchange your sweat for making you better. Exchange your sweat for making you better. Instill confidence that you can share later. Never give up. Keep doing whatever it takes. Successful people have at times failed at a lot. Progress is when you make failures stepping stones. Instead of complaining, crying, and sighing moans, rejuvenate the vigor. Invoke that shaking thought. Excellence has 3 stages: aspire, perspire, inspire. Food for thought. It's good to have a sense of humor. Now, when you look at the concept of quotes, some of these quotes can really stay with you for a long time. Now, the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. Success is not a destination. It is a journey. You learn more from your failure than successes. So don't let it stop you. Failure builds character. Now, if the plan doesn't work, change the plan, but never the goal. Believe in yourself first, because believing in yourself first is the first secret to success or a successful life, a life well lived. With that, I'd say thank you very much. This was Teacher Disposition, exploring the unquantifiable.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay. In the chat box, there are few questions.
Okay.
Can you see those questions, sir?
I'm just taking a look at where that chat box is.
Okay, yes.
Okay, Q&A, all right. Let me take a look. Oh, just a sec. Can you read them out one at a time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll have to stop presenting. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first question from anonymous attendee.
Right.
Can you please shed some light on how to redesign our brain?
Okay, redesigning or rewiring the brain. It is through very profound experiences. It can be done by allowing faculty members to go through certain leadership retreats and seminars, or certain time off for themselves, some sabbaticals, and also providing them with the opportunity to read, write, reflect, present, do a research program, but they need to be given that time and space, and also incentivization for that. Because sometimes personal development happens with a little bit of a motivation, and today's times we've got to look at how people are encouraged rather than forced into capacity building, their own personal development. So when it comes to rewiring the brain, it could be reading, it could be movies, it could be a certain kind of music, allowing them to go on certain journeys, solo travel, very interesting. And look at peer learning, buddy them up, pair them up with somebody whom they think they can learn from, a mentor. Write a documentary, make a movie along with your students. And you can seize every moment. You know, there's a carpe diem situation, and you can seize these moments, and every single day should be a learning curve for us. It shouldn't be that I need time and I need so many years to get a PhD or so many years to become an evolved intellectual. Let me tell you, one of the best ways in order to rewire the brain, I would say, as a teacher, as an educator, teaching in an English medium institution, is to develop your vocabulary. That really helps. Conversations with well-meaning people, exciting conversations, interesting conversations, improving our diction, our sound, our phonetics, everything to do with sound and what we say and what we do. It reflects with our intellectual development. So look at English, developing your capacity of working with English as a language. I think that'll help you to rewire and definitely, take your brain to the next level cognitively.
Okay, sir. Then the next question is, how will we create a friendly and good environment between the teacher and students so that they can freely share their problems?
Correct. You'll be surprised. I mean, a lot of students have problems, especially during teenage years. And some of you are teaching adult students who are no longer minors. But when it comes to minors, you have to have a very strict line of control that you cannot cross. So when it comes to getting into the personal space and discussing personal problems, children will start unburdening themselves and start talking about all kinds of stuff. They'll talk about their family issues or relationship problems or health issues or aspirational issues, emotional, psychological stress, or differences with another faculty member. They'll unburden, they'll talk to you. And I've had students coming to me and talking to me about it. For that, you need to also be on an emotional stable high ground, because if you are not emotionally stable, and if somebody is drowning out there and you go and give a hand and you yourself can't swim, you both will drown. And this goes hand in hand. I mean, you pulling children up from the emotional stress and traumas and problems, you need to be stable. If you're emotionally unstable, that situation will sort of pull you down to a situation where both of you will be in a state of despair. And with adults, I would say you could have the conversations. You've got to keep time for mentoring. You've got to create mentoring groups, and we've got to allow students and teachers to visit each other in groups. There should be a group outside the classroom, sit and talk about life. Why can't faculty members and students go out of school campus, maybe on a weekend, and sit in a cafe over a cup of coffee and nice cakes and discuss about life? Why can't they do that? Why are we so traditionally minded that teachers and students only interact in class? It creates more stress. They don't get the freedom to express themselves. So that's why they have to go outside of the classroom. They need to go for picnics. They need to go for excursions. They need to go to the coffee stall, go in groups, sit down, discuss. And that's where the mentor or the faculty can inspire them, tell them how they can solve issues and life's problems. And I think that relationship building happens outside the classroom than just in the classroom. In the classroom, you have only transactional knowledge, and you give it's KT, knowledge transfer, KT. In corporate parlance, that's what it's called. You give information about a subject and complete the syllabus, and that's about it, go home. But children are more than just completing syllabus, isn't it? They're human beings, they need time, and they need time with the adults and parents. But unfortunately, parents and teachers are not able to give children time to help them solve their life's problem. But that being said, of course, faculty members have their own freedom and space and time. You can't force them. It has to be independent and individually done, sort of. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. As you know, these higher teacher students, like class 11 and 12 teachers, they need to have a B.Ed certificate. So during their studies, I think they study all these things. So do you feel there is a need to give training on effective teaching method to the college teachers prior to joining their profession?
Yes, definitely. There has to be a more effective teacher education program. And this has to be very carefully designed, keeping in mind not just the subject expertise or like subject specific pedagogy or electives like biology, chemistry, physics, English. These are great. Social sciences or economics and business studies. These are electives. These are specializations within the knowledge domain. All right. But when we come and look at educational excellence in terms of a faculty development framework, we have to look at, for example, like I said, exploring the unquantifiable, the learner profile, the IB learner profile that talks about certain profiles that are, or personality and characteristic traits that faculty members need to develop as part of their life's journey as evolved educators. What about language skills? They really need to develop English as a language skill because they're working in English medium in schools. And, and that being said, you can have regional languages being taught. Yes, great. You can have bilingualism. Great. Bilingualism is very powerful, very powerful. But English is important. Research skills. So qualitative virtues, research skills, qualitative measures, and positivity framework, knowing yourself, strength finder, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, having leadership coaching, teaching them about leadership, teaching them about theory of knowledge, spiritual development. So all these put together along with a certain subject specialization, and yes, the whole primary curriculum that goes hand in hand. Right now it's only in that direction, but we need to look at this also and bring this together. Then we have a seamless integration of a faculty development program that is ongoing and well packaged, I would say.
Okay. Okay, sir. Then one last question. How can we induce positive mindset in a working environment? Positive mindset.
A positive mindset comes over a period of time, and it is driven through a positive leadership and a spiritual ethos through the leadership. So positive mindset comes with freedom of expression. When the management or the leadership gives them the freedom of expression, it has unbiased workspaces. It is not a regionally claustrophobic area where you have too much of regionalism and localism in the environment. A positive mindset is that mindset which allows you to express your ideas, thoughts, and feelings, and the ability to get opportunities to exercise independent thought and thinking process. And people need to be emotionally stable and mature to be given that kind of freedom. If they are not emotionally mature, then you'll have people going off on all kinds of tangents. So it takes a period of time to develop this positive spiritual workplace. And it is usually by good example, good leadership, good nurturing, by coming together, reading, discussing on a positive topic, and sharing life's experiences. A lot of group work and teamwork, it goes hand in hand in discussing some of the greater aspirations and problems of life, mind, and matter, where people sit together, dialogue, discuss. Then you sort of test the pulse and you come on the same wavelengths and you develop this wavelength. So you need positive people to talk to you, teach you, educate you, give them examples, give them experience, group learning, group teaching, question answer session, friendships, relationships. Everything is possible with cordial relationships. So positive work environment can be positive if there are good people, if there are positive things, positive leadership, discussions, regular discussions, informal discussions, cordial, healthy relationships within the adult teachers, and also give them some incentivization also. Give them some incentivization programs, like, okay, allow them to, okay, take leave this day and you go ahead and do your own research, reading, reflection, write a blog, write a news article, publish this. So that's,
okay, sir.
That's how we do.
Then another question comes up. Let me read out again.
Yes.
According to your perspective, does your present academic system as a whole in our country cater the needs of the students in promoting quality education? If not, why? What steps need to be taken?
Right. See, what happens is currently the education system in India is good, but is it good enough? Is a question mark. Can it get better? Definitely. Yes. There's always a qualitative process of development, and what are the steps that we need to take? I think we need to, give credit to the government for whatever it's doing. We have to give credit to independent organizations for what they're doing. Different organizations were established with whatever resources they had for whatever mission and common vision and mission in different regional places. And now some people have the affordability for this so-called quality education. Some schools are just not evolved. They don't have furniture. They don't have, children are sitting on the floor. They're malnourished. They don't even have food to eat. And then, it's a vicious cycle of poverty, alienation, oppression, lack of resources, and illiteracy and poverty, and they go hand in hand, and corruption. So we need to break this vicious cycle. And how can we break this vicious cycle? We can break this vicious cycle by awareness, through education, through nurturing, through caring. And look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I think if some of these goals come into our projects, problem-based learning, project-based learning in schools. And the assessment criteria changes from just giving marks on certain subject areas. If that changes, everything will change. Then we'll have a qualitative yardstick and framework into measuring people as people, like EQ and IQ. We are measuring both, and we are measuring the whole child. And what about fitness? We are not developing fitness in children. Some of our faculty are not fit to teach. So we need to develop fitness, because fitness develops positive mindset, endorphins in the body. Some faculty are very stressed out. They have cortisol. Then they go around all the place and stressing the thing. I showed you the diagram of negative emotions in the body. People who are diseased and negative and all this, they go around making the environment very diseased and negative. We have to have people fit. Yes, we have to recover. If you are sick and ill and all, you stay at home. If the child is ill, you cannot force it. We do that. We ask the people to take a strategic pause. Okay, go off. Develop yourself, come back when you're healthy and hearty. Similarly, people have to be physically fit. Professors and teachers should be given an incentive to becoming fit. They should be really measured on that. They should be allowed to read, write, and excel in literature, in language, do solo travels, do expeditionary learning programs. Also have a incentivization for their emotional excellence, that they are positive people. Parents are very happy with their expressions, with the way they are bringing up students. They're always laughing, smiling. They have gentlemanly qualities, gentlemanly or gentlewomanly qualities. I don't know why they say only gentlemanly and not gentlewomanly. Gentlemanly qualities are polite behaviors, mannerisms. You have to teach. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your efforts, and wish Government Circular College all the very best. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Principal and Staff Government Circular College, I also like to express my thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting our humble invitation. You are the right person, because having PhD degree in zoology and a faculty in education, that is what
interdisciplinary.
We need. Yeah, that's interdisciplinary. That all of faculty need to have interdisciplinary.
Yes, I think so.
It is. Yes,
it helps.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to expressing my solidarity and support to all of you in the Northeast. And I have some very good friends there, and some of the CV did his PhD with me, along with several other colleagues of mine who are from the Northeast. And in fact, when you go and study anthropology and religion, and you see where we have come from and the evolution and the lost tribes, some of the lost tribes of Israel in India, and you will be very surprised to see in India, we do have lost tribes, and of the 12 tribes and some of the lost tribes, and where are they? Some of them are in the Northeast. And, the Bene Manasseh tribes, they are there in the Northeast of India. So you can be sure that you have my full support. And we as native Indians, and more than that, are here to coexist, and we are definitely going to go to bigger and better heights in the future. Thank you very much. Education can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Shall we leave?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.